SCTV viewers. Welcome to another episode of What's Growin On. I'm Jayne Spooner. I'm a University of Minnesota Master Gardener here in Rice County. And welcome to a Christmas edition of What's Growin On. We're going to be talking about all things floral and plants and stuff that, as gardeners, we never can seem to get away from having some type of green plant, some type of flower in our house that, even though we should be taking that long winter's nap right now, like I talked about in a gardener's Thanksgiving, we still have to surround ourselves with something growing, something green, or some type of plant. And so we're going to talk about a little bit of some of the most common things that are being used, and maybe a little history of it. We have a little demonstration and a couple of show and tells at the end. So we're going to have a little bit of fun today, and some of it's going to be talking about some fun things about these holiday plants and some of the legends and lores too. So join me as we tiptoe through a winter wonderland. Traditions of bringing a tree into the house date back way to the 16th century and started back in Germany. And it wasn't until the 1930s that we started putting artificial trees in our house. And these were developed by a company called the Atis Company. And actually the Atis Company was a brush manufacturing firm. And to be more explicit about it, it was a toilet bowl brush company. So that was what our first Christmas trees were made of in the artificial way. And I think people just bring it in that it is, again, the centerpiece of many Christmas celebration. And really the greenery is what people are looking at, because the constant greenery, it symbolizes renewal and eternal life. And because, as you know, in the winter landscape, if you're seeing evergreens or spruce or whatever, they're still the only thing green outside, where everything else is brown and icky looking. So I think that's why we always have that touch of green within our holidays and as a centerpiece to our Christmas. Now, another iconic plant that we use in our homes during the holiday, of course, is the poinsettia. Well, is it poinsettia, poinsettia, tomato, potato, clematis, you name it. But that is one of the biggest florals that you'll actually see in homes besides the Christmas tree. Now, the poinsettia plant is actually native to Mexico. As you can see, this is, what we see as a poinsettia these days in greenhouses or floral stores. But if you actually look at a native poinsettia, it's very wild and it grows in huge shrubs. And I've actually seen poinsettias, native poinsettias, growing many, many moons ago. In college, I took a trip for my winter interim program and spent a month in Hawaii. And they were growing all over. And it's funny how they can kind of change from that green to red on their own, whereas poinsettias grown in a greenhouse situation require a few months of just complete and total darkness. So greenhouses that decide to grow these for sale, for fundraisers or whatever, when they start this poinsettia process, usually in about the month of July, that these have to go into total darkness. And so they're basically covered, and the only way to really go in there to do anything is you have to wear like a headlamp with a red light on it, because any bit of light and your whole poinsettia crop is just completely gone. So it's kind of a touchy crop. But nowadays, as you see in the wild, they are red and a little bit of white. Now you can get them in pinks, you can get them speckled, they're dyeing them, they're glittering them. There are all kinds of colors to fit your landscape. And these have been really popular since about the 19th century, that they're a little bit more formal like this rather than the native ones. And there is actually some symbolism. So when you look at the poinsettia plant, everybody thinks that this red part about here, these are called bracts, that these are not actually the flower. These are considered part of the leaves, because as you can see in the back, sometimes you see a little bit of red tinging in the green leaves. This top tiny little centerpiece is actually the flower of the poinsettia. And they're actually kind of considered, it kind of symbolizes what they call the Star of Bethlehem. So people like that symbolism in their holiday florals for their home. And so basically, Star of Bethlehem. So this is, something else that is pretty commonplace. Me, I have no luck with them. I get them as a gift. I can get them just through the holiday and then they're gone. So they can be kind of a touchy flower, but they do add, with proper care, they do add some beautiful color to your home for the holidays. And then of course, we have a holly. A great plant to add to it, add a little ivy. You've got a song, The Holly and the Ivy. And this has these waxy leaves and these red berries. As you can see, this has got a little bit of variegation around the sides. Here it's got some white on it, and then there's some regular green leaves. So, there's several different meanings behind the holly. In pre-Christian times, it was kind of a symbol of protection. In the Middle Ages, it brought good luck. In Christianity, its meaning is kind of tied up to the birth of Christ and the nativity, and the red berries kind of symbolize the blood of Christ. And these little leaves on a holly are kind of spiny and kind of prickly. And so the spiny leaves actually represent the crown of thorns that is symbolic at Easter time when Christ died on the crucifix. So, and then, of course, you're probably thinking, why am I talking about gold, frankincense, and myrrh, the three gifts that the wise men brought to Jesus? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Well, we all know what gold is, so thanks, honey, for putting a ring on it. But frankincense and myrrh, they come from a plant. Both of them come from plants. And you can kind of see them, the gold, the frankincense, and the myrrh. And these are kind of in powdered and nugget forms, but they actually are derived, the latter two are derived. So this is a frankincense plant, and they got the little berries in it. And then we've got the myrrh. It's got it almost looks like a little bit of a yarrow plant. And this grows, and so that really wasn't what they probably the wise men brought, but they probably brought essential oils made from these two plants. And that's what frankincense really are grown for, is their essential oils. They do use them for some powders for different applications, but I think people will see them more in applications of essential oils. So, and what are these oils used for? They're used for anointing for religious and spiritual purposes, holy anointing with perfumed oils, blessing and healing rituals, medicine and healing, key components of ancient medicine. They used a lot of essential oils, in healing when we didn't have modern day medicine. Myrrh actually is an antiseptic. It was used in wound care, pain relief. Frankincense is used a lot for inflammation. I know, having some arthritis in certain parts of my body, people have recommended using some of that. Respiratory issues, ritual purification. And it was also used at burial or embalming, at the time of death back then. At the time, they didn't have men in speed stick or secret roll-on, but they used them in perfumes and daily care, just for to keep yourself fresh as a daisy. And then actually in trade and wealth. And we all know that gold is expensive, but actually frankincense and myrrh were incredibly valuable at the time that they were grown. So they were used in a lot of commerce too. So, but those were part of the three gifts to Jesus. So they were actually bringing wealth to him. And of course, meet me under the mistletoe, or in its botanical name, the hemiparasitic. And I think they changed it to mistletoe because they couldn't come up with hemiparasitic to rhyme with anything in any of the mistletoe songs that are out there. So, and again, it's one of those plants that did have it was a symbol of love and friendship. And as we know, well, you were kissing under the mistletoe, so there's your love and friendship. And ancient Druids actually thought it had magical properties as a symbol of peace and fertility. Hence the kissing, huh? And Norse mythology thought it was also a symbol of love and friendship. And they felt that the tradition of kissing is what has thought to be originated from these ancient beliefs. So this is kind of the playful addition to your holiday. So who are you going to kiss under the mistletoe this year? And then, of course, Christmas cactus. This is also a great plant that you see out in the stores now, and these can grow very large with very beautiful blooms if you can get them to this size. Sometimes the ones that are really big are handed down from generation to generation, and at the end of my narrative of all this, I'm actually going to show you one that I have ownership of that belonged to my husband's mother, whom I never got to meet. She passed away before Tom and I got married, but his sister had it and they moved and it eventually came down to me. So I'll give you a little show of what it looks like and how big it is. And actually this, while it's called a cactus, it's not native to Mexico or, the southern states where we see a lot of cactuses growing. This is actually native to Brazil. And like I said, passed down through generations. But do you know that there's actually 3 types of these Christmas cactuses? So we're going to do a little comparison here. I'm going to show you a slide. So we have 3 different types of cactuses that are out during some of our holidays. The first one here is the Thanksgiving cactus. And as you can see, it's got these sharp little points on the leaves. Now this is the Christmas cactus. It's more rounded and it's long. It kind of sends shoots out. And it doesn't have these little spikes there. And then you've got the Easter/spring cactus. And while this leaf looks much like the Christmas cactus, if you look very closely at it, you'll see that there's a little bit more of a texture to that leaf. So that's kind of the differences. So when you're actually seeing them in the store and they're calling it a Christmas cactus, take a good look at the leaves and make sure that it's not a Thanksgiving cactus or an Easter spring cactus. And one of my favorite things that I grow every year for my home is an amaryllis. And I have done some aftercare of amaryllis. I did a video a few years ago, and maybe I can convince Troy to maybe put that out in January to show you how you can over summer these and you can get them to grow again. And we'll just do a little history lesson in January. I think he can pull it out of the archives for me. It might be kind of fun to look at it. But this is one of my favorites to put, besides my Christmas tree, it's kind of one of my favorites to put out. And we'll have a little demonstration with that. But this amaryllis, now this is native to South Africa, and it symbolizes strength and determination. And if you've ever seen an amaryllis up close, this isn't a great picture of it, but it has this very long stalk and this huge clump of flowers on there, and it just stands there straight. And so to me, that's the strength and determination to have that large clump of flowers growing on top of that, tiny stalk. And it comes in many different colors. Here we've got the red one, but it comes in white, it comes in pink, it comes in some variegated colors. And once you get it planted, it comes in a bulb. You can already buy them already fairly sprouted and whatever, but I like to bring them from, right from the bulb, and we'll show you a little bit how that's done here. And they take about 6 to 8 weeks to bloom, and some people will try and get them started so that they're blooming about the time Christmas comes. I like to wait so that I have something blooming, something's floral and bright in my home, in the months of January and February when there's really not a lot going on. So this is another great flower to have for your holiday season. So, and I talked a lot about the Christian beliefs and some of the things here, and this is certainly not, I want to, emphasize the Christianity part of it, because there are a couple other religions out there, beliefs or whatever, that also do things the month of December. And one of them, of course, is Hanukkah, the 8 days of Hanukkah, the menorah that comes out. And they too have some symbolism to some of the flowers they use. There's no specific flowers. They kind of are going basically around, the colors. And they'll talk about the types of colors only because that's what the colors, that they are. So they use a lot of white flowers because it symbolizes purity and light. Blue flowers, tradition of the Jewish heritage. So you see a lot of blue being displayed during the Jewish celebrations. Olive branches, symbol of peace and the miracle of the oil. The miracle of the oil in the lamp, the 8 days that it burned. Evergreens, much like we use evergreens, they symbolize winter, and they recognize resilience. They'll be able to be green during the winter time when it's in the cold winter. And silver or frosted accents, and they represent celebrations and being very festive. So they do incorporate some of those things into their celebrations as well. And then our African American heritage and the flowers and plants of Kwanzaa. And they don't necessarily use the flowers and plants as a way. It's more, it features symbolic plants of harvesting items, during that time. And it represents community growth and African heritage. And they use a lot of the colors of the red, the black, and the green. And some of the things that they do utilize during this time, it's called mazeo. Sorry if the pronunciation is wrong. And this represents the crops. So fruits and vegetables and the grains symbolizing harvest. Muhindi, corn, 1 ear per child, which that symbolizes our future. And then some of the decorative flowers, which are not traditional but are used a lot, is reds, roses, carnations, because they use red. Green, tropical leaves, eucalyptus and ferns. And then many African-inspired flowers as well, protea, birds of paradise, anthurium, and sunflowers. So again, just, some different things that other faiths do use during their celebrations at this time of year in the month of December. So let's take a look at some other things that go on here, just some show and tell of things that I've talked at. And I've talked a lot about different plants and stuff, and really you can use just about anything to decorate your home, and it doesn't always have to be some of the ones that I've mentioned. Not everything has to be evergreens, poinsettias, and whatever. So this is a little succulent bowl. It was through a fundraiser. I have 2 granddaughters in Red Wing that belong to a dance company over there. And just like any organization now, there's fundraisers. And I thought this was cute. Something that I can remove all the red decorative stuff after the holidays and just set this in lucky to have a garden window above my kitchen sink. And so I can have a little bit of green till the spring and then just move this outside. And earlier I talked about Christmas cactus, and so I just wanted to take a moment to show the Spooner Christmas cactus. Like I said, Tom doesn't remember when his mom started this, and I'm not going to give his age away, but it's old. So anyway, this is my Christmas cactus, and I've only seen it bloom once, and that was when I first got it, and I think it was just acclimating. They can be really fussy this way. So I'm still doing some research on, getting this to bloom, and a lot of people will move these outside in the spring and leave them outside, that they do very well out there. But I'm kind of honored, and so far I've kept it alive, and want to keep the family tradition going and not let them be disappointed and stuff. So I am the keeper of the family Christmas cactus. So anyway, and last but not least, every year I said in the video earlier that I always grow amaryllis, and that's so that I have some color after the holidays to kind of get me through the dark winter months. And of course, the amaryllis. Now, it comes in a kit like this. You can go to a garden store and just actually find the bulb in and of itself. But the reason I like this is it all comes packaged nicely in this box. You just pull it out. Comes with the pot. This is actually what the bulb looks like. And then it comes with this really cool compressed disc of soil. You open this up, put it in the pot, put in 2 cups of warm water, and it eventually expands. And it looks like this. So it expanded all the way to the top. So that's been sitting there for a while, and it expands like that, and you just take a little fork and fluff it up. Make sure you wash it. Don't put it back in the drawer. And then this is the one I'm planting in this pot. As you can see, it's kind of a variegated with white and pink. And then here's the bulb. And before you put it in, you just want to check and make sure, and because the box is open when you buy it, you can kind of look at it too, but you want to make sure that your bulb is nice and firm and hard, that there's no mushy spots on it. It's much like a tulip bulb or daffodil bulb when you go and find them in the greenhouse to plant them in the fall. You just want to make sure it's hard, because if it's mushy, it probably means that it's rotten and it's not going to grow. And this outer part with the skin on it, that's what they call all carbohydrate, and the plant coming out from the middle. And then what you do is just set this bulb right in this pot. And you really want to leave that bulb exposed like that. And then just take it and water it in a little bit. And it actually gets going pretty good once it comes out of the box and gets in that soil. And just kind of check it, by sticking your finger in the soil and just to continue to water it. And eventually it gets a tall stalk. It'll get some leaves on it. And eventually you can have, sometimes if you're lucky, you'll get 2 stalks with 2 flower heads on it. But they're just really fun to watch grow, and they grow pretty much. And you want to make sure, if you're putting in a really good sunny window, you want to continue to rotate it every couple of days, because now at this time of year, we don't have a lot of sun, and so it's going to constantly be reaching for that sun. And so you want to rotate it, about a quarter to a half, so that it has to reach back, and you try and keep it straight. And if it continues to kind of lean, just find a stake or something and just loosely tie it to that to kind of help, because sometimes it ends up getting really weak. But just by rotating that pot will help it gain that strength so that it grows up. And I guarantee you, it's just one of those flowers. It just, when the first one opens and blooms, it just makes you happy, because you're thinking some color over the drab, the snow. It just, but it's just a fun flower to grow. And then after it quits blooming, you cut off that stalk, and you can continue to water a little bit. In the spring, move it outdoors, and just let it continue. It just, again, like a tulip bulb or a daffodil bulb, when it gets done blooming, you leave that greenery up on it until it dies, and you cut it back. So with this, it'll start to die back, and if it doesn't, just bring it in the fall, cut back some of those leaves and put it in a dry, cool spot for a few weeks and let it regenerate in there, and then bring it out when you want. And it'll start growing again, and hopefully you've done the process right and you'll get another bloom for it. So, so that's another way to kind of regenerate the bulb and continue the life cycle of your bulb. So anyway, I just wanted to thank you for following along for the season with me. We've had a lot of fun. I know didn't post quite as much as I wanted to, but heck, but I've got some different things planned for next year. Hoping to do maybe some short spots every now and then, and those will be put out on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're Facebook followers, you'll see those out there. And we're going to try and do more segments on what to do each month of the year, and just to kind of help us follow along. What to even start in January, how you can start getting your stuff ready for gardening in January and February. So again, thanks for all your support of this program for FCTV and for the Rice County Master Gardeners. It's without you gardeners out there, we wouldn't have anybody to talk about, and would have to talk to our spouses about gardening all the time, and they get tired of us. So I enjoy coming into your homes during the holidays. I always enjoy the feedback from everybody, and I'm hoping that as 2025 closes out, that you have many good things to look forward to in 2026, not only in your life, but in your garden as well. So thanks. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah. And for my Czechoslovakian heritage, Vesely Vánoce. Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.